All right, Nerd League, I'm here in Artist Alley once again for Fan Expo Canada 2017, and I'm actually hanging out with two developers. We have Keith Grachow and Ben Grisanti. Let's start with Keith. Maybe you can tell us about your series, what it's called, what it's about, and how we can get our hands on it.
Yeah, no worries. So I actually have a couple of different things. Saltwater. It's an ongoing series about this colony in Mars starting in the 50s. And they believe that the Earth has been destroyed, but then they get a message from the Earth in modern times, and that's where the story begins. But they're still stylistically in the 50s. We actually just released issue number 2 this past weekend, and we plan on premiering it in the States next weekend at Portland, Oregon's Rose City. So Mitch Cook is the writer on this series. I have another comic book called Weapon Wars, which is actually written by a 13-year-old, and it's a really fun read. His father had hired me to teach his son how to create comics, and he kept on showing up to his lessons week after week, so we actually had a comic book to print. So we actually premiered this back in May. And then the other thing I am working on is Polybius Dreams, and Ben Grisanti is the writer for it. I'll let him explain what it's about.
Yeah, Ben, maybe you can tell us about what Polybius is and what the comic itself is about.
Yeah, well, I'm sure a lot of people, probably several of your viewers might have heard of the Polybius urban legend, which is it sort of cropped up online. Urban legend about a video game that mysteriously appeared in the 1980s. People were obsessed with it. Started getting headaches, started having night terrors. There were some deaths potentially involved, and then it disappeared, and it was rumored to be like a government experiment. So I heard this a few years ago, and it was really haunting. Like, it was really scary. So it kind of freaked me out a little bit, and I thought, why hadn't anybody made this into something yet? And this was several years ago. So what we did is I just took that and kind of made used the bare bones of that to tell like a character-driven, slow burn horror suspense story, and that's where Polybius Dreams sort of came in. So it's we changed some of the details around. It's set a little bit later in 1986 than when allegedly the original story happened, and we just use it as a basis to tell like a character-driven, like emotional horror story that's more of like a psychological than necessarily terror related. We just put the first issue into print now. It's going to be 4 total, which we want to publish as a graphic novel, but it's much easier to fund it one at a time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And as far as independent developers go, it's easy to think of big name guys like Stan Lee or Todd McFarlane that inspire people. Are there other independent developers that you guys have taken inspiration from?
Yeah, many, like independent movies, like especially. I was a big fan of Robert Rodriguez, like when I was growing up. Like my dad bought his book for me, which was, it's called Rebel Without a Crew, which I think they're making into a reality show now. But it was like he made El Mariachi for just like such a small amount of money, and it was like, it sort of opened like my eyes at a relatively young age that you could just go out there with the resources that you can cobble together and just make something creative and get like a big response. As far as comics, there's been a lot of indie comics creators. It would be super hard to like maybe point to one like over the years, but just in the last couple of years, even like maybe in the last decade, there's been just a boom of like people self-publishing their books. So there's a nice community that you can kind of rely on and get to know everybody and support each other's stuff. So it's just a wonderful thing to be a part of.
And if people aren't here this weekend, how can they get a hold of your guys' series?
Well, I have a website, kgrachow.com. So it's kgrachow.com. You could also find me on Facebook under Keith Grachow, or Instagram and Twitter under kgrachow. and I usually update my progress with Polybius Streams or Saltwater with little sneaks of what I'm drawing. And I guess Ben.
I publish everything under my small press imprint, which is Hypnotic Dog Comics. So you can find me at hypnoticdogcomics.com. If you're interested in the Polybius story, we have polybiusstreams.com set up for that. We're going to be doing another crowdfunding campaign at the end of the month to try to raise money for the second one. We got a lot of really fun guest artists and pinup artists lined up for that, so it should be a blast.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much.
Thanks very much.
All right, Nerd League, I'm once again at one of my favorite places to visit, Artist Alley, and I'm here with one of my favorite people to visit, Matthew Muhammad, who is the creator of The Black Bastard. Matthew, how are you? And maybe you can give us a quick rundown of what The Black Bastard is and how we can obtain this series.
Oh, I'm doing all right. You know what? I'm doing great. Let me tell you a little bit about it. It's 100% wrong, but 110% fun. It's basically like Dave Chappelle or Richard Pryor, that kind of humor in a comic book. So if you like to laugh, you're gonna love this. We're basically at these shows, and we're not currently selling it online. But if you come to one of these shows, or you Google it online, or email me, or whatever, get in touch with me on Facebook, we can always get you a copy. So check it out. It's a lot of fun. If you like to laugh, this is it.
So the series itself is it's more of a comedy, and it's a lot to do with racial satire and stuff like that. Can you tell us a bit about the main character and what he represents in your series?
Well, a lot of the black culture is based around the idea of things being backwards or opposite. Like, oh, you look fat, and that's a good thing, right? So it centers around a high school guidance counselor who, when he drinks a glass of orange juice and utters the magical phrase, "By the power of OJ," he's transformed into the Black Bastard. So it's one of those things where what he represents is represents a guy that doesn't take crap from anyone. And when you're black, they call you a bastard. So he's out doing what he wants to do, and he's out doing good, but he does it in his own way, and he's helping people in his own way, and having fun doing it. So,
are there any villains in the character that he has to tackle, or is it just basically looking out for society and helping the little man?
You know what? There's a lot of villains. We had in the first issue, he went up against the KKK. But it was actually 3 women named Kim, Carrie, and Karen. And so I always try and create a villain for the certain story that I'm writing, because it just helps move it along. So it's a lot of fun, and it's not necessarily, it's whatever the story or issue is about, because we have different themes. Like we have the love issue or the religion issue. We have a basketball issue, things like that. So I'm trying to work on a Trump issue, and I keep having to rip it up because the stuff that's happening in real life is crazier than what I was writing. So can't have that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much again. It's always awesome running into you here in Artist Alley.
Thanks, man. All right.